Hello everybody, welcome to the 7th Time for a Pint Virtual Get Together. I think it's 7. The 7th week of us getting together to talk about watches remotely and try and bring people back together. One day I promise we will do this in the pub again, but until then, the internet it is. I have my, as you've met for the last 7 weeks, my wonderful co-host Matt. Hello Matt.
Morning.
And Matt is going to introduce both of our guests this evening.
No pressure again. So I am very, very honoured to have two guests with us tonight. James Thompson, Canadian, now Swedish-based designer. You may know him better as Black Badger, and most of the radio jokes are probably because he glows like a glowy thing, really. James is a jewelry designer, amongst other things, industrial designer recently, and has some collaborations with a number of watch brands such as MB&F. Most recently NW & Co, Sarpaneva, and our own Schofield. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
And second guest today is Kari Voutilainen. Getting my fins muddled up already. It's all these Scandies.
Esa peta.
Yeah, don't I feel a bit of a knob. Anyway, Kari should be probably is well known to most people, but he first studied in Finland at the watchmaking school there, moved on to Parmigiani amongst others, moved back to school at Wostep, and became a teacher there for some years before starting his own atelier in 2002. So welcome, Kari. Excellent. And we're going to start things off with a couple of watches that Kari's brought along to this virtual get together. As you'll know, we talk about our own watches, not necessarily ones that we've made ourselves, but ones that we've certainly bought and have some stories to them. So Kari, welcome again.
Okay. So that one is called it Sarpaneva OIVA. So that's a watch, but perhaps you can put the next picture, you can see the watch. Yeah, so that was when Stepan, I know Stepan for a long time, so more than 30 years. I met him in 80s in watchmaking school, and we were working together in Switzerland. And then when he was moving back to Finland from Switzerland in the late 90s, beginning of 2000, and he launched his own brand, and that was his first watch. I mean, not first watch. First watch was this pocket watch with a kick wheel on the Harley Davidson. He made one piece like that, and then he made this model, and I wanted to support him, and I bought this watch. I mean, more than, yeah, I think it's 20 years now, and I've been wearing that once in a while. Some scratches you can see on the bezel, but it's a stark steel, and it's hard, and it's really hard, and it has been running, and I never overhauled, but I'm wearing that once in a while, and then it's very robust. Perhaps you can see the side view. Yeah, it's a very robust stuff, and his construction of the case is a bit unusual, and at that time also the dial, when he was doing the dial, it was tricky for him because he was doing the dial by himself, so he's milling, and then I think the painting was just a black painting tag, and then the printing, his name was printed on the glass. But I really did like that watch, and also as a support, as a friend, and for me it was very, very, important, and I have been supporting him since I've been buying quite many watches from him. And that's why it's a number 9. I don't know how many he made, but not that many, perhaps 20 watches or something like that.
So and how thick is it?
Oh, it's a piece of pea. I mean, it's thick.
It's big.
Centimeters.
Wow.
It's not that heavy. It's nice. It's nice.
When I was making the slide deck, Kari, I went looking for Sarpaneva watches because, as I think everybody will know, this is a world that I am very, very unfamiliar with. And I found Stefan's catalogue from when he launched these watches. And I'll put it in the show notes and the link because it is fascinating. And it just talks about this being a very thick watch.
But it's also
Awesome.
Got to be tough in Finland.
also the watch that it has a character, as Stefan.
Chris, could you go back a couple of slides back to the front again? Do you mind? Thank you. So do you think it's a single piece of steel that's milled and then painted for the dial?
No, the dial is made from brass.
Okay.
I think it's brass, but that's the beginning of his career. But he has been developing, but having the same spirit, and I think, and also the case, how the case is made. I think it's pretty nice though. The bezel, it fits inside of the case. It's waterproof and it's really solid.
That's a spectacular dial. I absolutely love that.
I love that dial too. And
Sort
the
of
date as well.
Sort of a
Date's cool at
1950s
4:30.
space program kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But,
Awesome.
but that was, and also I've been buying watches and they are always like not a reason, but also the person who is doing or like that. That's part of the story. So anyway,
Cool.
and then
I love how chunky this is. Every single detail of it is just so thick. Sort of the massive crown and the thick case. It does feel like you said, James. It feels like sort of a past version of the future in space. Like you could use that thing to fight off aliens.
it looks nice on the wrist and it has a character.
Mm.
Yeah.
And still very recognizably Sarpaneva with the
Yeah.
the star-shaped crown. Yeah.
And
I'm
and
guessing that you would have a hard time buttoning up your cufflinks with that, which is what I extra like about it. You can only button up the cufflinks on your other wrist.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Any questions from anybody about this in the Q&A, Matt? Anybody curious?
Rochelle's wondering whether those crevices might be filled with badgerite one day.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Stefan doesn't return my calls anymore. No, I'm just kidding.
Torsten's asked what weight it is. He reckons about 25 kilograms, but I think Kari said it was quite light.
Yeah, but the watch is, as it's a bit of leather strap, it's not heavy. The case is quite empty in the way. It's ETA movement.
ETA? So does the bezel come out and the movement goes in?
Yeah, exactly.
Through the front?
It's still from the behind. When we remove the strap, the screws are underneath of the strap. So on the back side, it's very clean. That you can't see how it's fitted. But when you remove the strap, then you can see those screws. You remove the screws, and then you can remove the bezel, and then the movement is. I mean, then you have to remove the hand style and that stuff.
Yeah.
You can pull everything.
Very cool.
It's interesting. It's a very, as you said, quite a kind of space age dial, but then those Flieger hands are quite, I don't know, 40s, 50s, those piloty Flieger hands. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I think you absolutely nailed it spot on, Chris, when you said it was like a vision of what the future would be like, but in like 1958 or something, when they were still trying to, which is an aesthetic that I absolutely love.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's that sort of space age comic book kind of thing.
Yeah, I've never seen this watch before now, and this is actually one of my favorite Sarpaneva pieces, and I've worked a heck of a lot with him, so that's very, very cool.
Very cool. Any more questions from anybody, or should we move on to the next watch? So Kari gets 2 this week because Kari suggested 2. So
because he's Kari.
that's what we're doing. So this is Kari's next watch. Over to you, Kari.
Yeah. All right. So this one is special in the way that when I was working in Parmigiani, that was in 1996. There was one exhibition in La Chaux-de-Fonds Watch Museum, and I did lend I finished my pocket watch tourbillon as my evening work in 1994, and then I did lend that pocket watch to the exhibition. It was the theme was tourbillon, and there were all kind of tourbillons. The exhibition was sponsored by Gérard Perregaux, so there were old pieces and some new pieces. And Mr. Palmberger, who was the owner of the Urban Jurgensen at that time, so he went to the exhibition and he saw my watch, and then he contacted me and he wanted to buy the watch. But I didn't sell. My wife, he was calling at home, my wife was on the phone, and my wife said, no, I think he's not going to sell the watch. But end of the day, I started to work for him, and I was working for him until when he passed away. It was, not 10 years, but 8 years ago. So I was doing a lot of things to him, and that was the watch. But I think for me, it's one of the most beautiful layout of the dial, and I did always admire that the dial. And Mr. Palmberger, Peter was a gentleman, and Derek, he did the dial. He was doing the engine turning, and so they were working together. And I became very good friend with Peter, and I met him almost last year before he passed away. We did a lot of things to him, and I met him every week, once, twice, and so it was somebody I really did respect. And then when he passed away, I was thinking I have to have something memory, and then I asked Mr. Krott, who took over the company, that there's one watch which is I can buy, and he said, there's one prototype, perhaps you can have that one. And at the end of the day, I did buy that watch for my personal gift for myself, for my 50th anniversary birthday gift. And I've been wearing that watch once in a while. It's nice to wear, and I really like that shape of the case, which is different comparing what's done today in that company. It's very soft design and nice to wear. It has a nice weight, and I don't know how many he made, but the movement is PK movement, but the purple color is beautiful. When we take off the dial, it's really nice. Everything is hand chamfered, screws are polished, and it is beautiful. So that's really the reason why I did buy the watch, like a memory, and I think it's nice. It's 38 millimeter in diameter. It's not too large. Very, very nice and elegant watch. So it's one of watches that I do wear once in a while, and it's a joy to wear.
It looks beautiful, and there are lots of comments as well from the audience so far, in particular around the hour hand and how beautiful that is. A couple of people have said that.
Yeah. So Peter was doing hands by himself. So Peter was a watchmaker, but he was also the businessman. He was running his company, and so Derek was doing dials at that time, and then he had a few watchmakers who were assembling watches for him. But Peter had a very good aesthetical eye. So when you look at the proportions and it looks very balanced.
Even having the day and date, so the month and the day just lifted over the center line is really cool as well. It just elevates the dial somehow. Lots of people love the lugs. Chris Andrews in particular. Yeah, Kari, you like these lugs too, don't you?
That's interesting. When you look at these teardrop lugs, they are very short, and then they are like, it's like a half. It's difficult to describe, but also the part which comes on the bezel. If you have a side, the next picture perhaps. Yeah, when you look at the lugs, they are like teardrops, but on the side. So the top surface is quite thin. The lug is not very large by himself, and I like that type of lug a lot. And also how it comes joins the case band. I think it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and the steps again. The steps, as you said, in the bezel into the watch are just perfect.
Yeah.
It almost looks more sort of pocket watch design than what you would think of being a wristwatch. It's very, very soft, I think, as Kari said, a very elegant, speechless.
Yeah, it's nice and elegant. And then perhaps the next, yeah. So
and the moon phase dial it's very highly polished. Is it lacquered or is it polished metal? Or
the dial
of the moon phase?
Moon phase is the moon phase is made from steel, and then of course it's polished, and all the yellow, it's a cold parts. So the stars and the moon it's made from gold, and then they are polished together, and then it's blued, and then the gold remains yellow, and then the steel is turning blue. So to do that sort of a moon phase, it's much more work instead of some modern moon phases where you have like a sapphire. That's easy to do, but this type of moon phase is it's more work. So the star is like it's stamped, and then you are forcing the cold inside, like you're feeling the star. So at the beginning, when you start the work, it looks a bit messy, and then you start to grind it down, you polish it, and then when you polish it, it's flat, it's nice, and then you are polishing with a buff, so it creates a little bit of structure that it's eating the cold a little bit more. So it's no more perfectly flat, it's a little bit domed, and it creates a nice structure. And then you have to clean it up, all that stuff, and then you're gluing with the heat. You put on the brass chips and with the flame underneath, and then you have to create the blue color.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
Fantastic stuff.
Next one. So here we can see we have small, better than watch up, very short, and the appearance when the watch is on the wrist, like it's the strap is really, Peter he did love the fact that the strap is touching the case band. So the spring bars, they're curved, and when the watch is on the wrist, you can't see the gap between the case band and the strap. It's really, it looks very, it's difficult to describe, but it looks very like it's a unit. Sometimes when you have a case band and the strap is 2 millimeters far away, you have empty space, and it doesn't sometimes look that nice. But he liked to have that atmosphere that the strap is part of the watch.
Wonderful.
Then he made there's 3 correctors, so it's a nice crown as well.
It's a perpetual, isn't it? Is it perpetual?
Yeah, it's a perpetual calendar. So the perpetual calendar, we can set up the moon phase separately, and the day, and the date and the month, they're fixed together. So if you miss one day, you have to go through all the 4 years. So you have to. So you don't have 4 quick correctors. You have 3.
Just 3.
That's a advanced or disadvantage, but in the daily life it doesn't matter. Like for me, like today, I mean, when I take the watch, it's always, I have to set up the calendar. But when you're used to it, it's easy to do. It doesn't take that much time. It's done in a few minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And like the watch also, the part, then like the reason, like almost all the watches, like here, it's also that relation what I had with Peter. So that was like a starting point why I did buy the watch. But I did like the watch as well.
I think we all like the watch. If
Yes.
you ever want to, you know, gift it to anyone.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, was there any more questions from anybody? Everyone's gone very quiet. It's just like I think there's a sort of consensus of we like that watch.
It's like walking into a chapel or a museum or something. Everyone just goes very hush and kind of reverent.
Yeah.
This is gorgeous.
So also to set up the watch it's sort of tricky in the way that there is no year indicator. So some watches there are, some watches there are not. There is no. So you have to be aware in which year you are. But once you set up the watch, I mean, when you're setting, you can see that when you arrive in February 28, is it going to go directly to the 1st of March, or is it going to 29th? So you have to find out where is your leap year, and then you just push. But it goes pretty fast because it's a very short. So when you go in, you can set up pretty easily. Even you have to go 4 years. It doesn't take that much time. It takes 1 minute.
Fantastic. Was it a Piguet base movement that was then changed by Urban Jurgensen? Or
the base movement is Frédéric Piguet movement, and it's pretty slim movement which have enough power to run the perpetual calendar. I have that watch now for 8 years. And I've been wearing that. Well, I mean, I haven't done any service or nothing. I'm just wearing. So.
Will you be servicing it yourself?
Yeah, or I give it to my daughter. My daughter has been servicing my watches last spring. She's good on that.
And you did that lovely piece for Only Watch last year as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's cool. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And there's the beautiful buckle, as you see on all the Urban Jurgensens, very slim, lovely curve to it.
Mm-hmm, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, like a horseshoe.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the shape is nice, but it's not convenient because how the strap do adjust inside, it's bending the strap. So it's not the most, it's elegant, but not practical.
Oh, it's practical.
Yeah. But looks nice.
Looks nice. There we are.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Should we let James take over? Which, I mean, it sounds dangerous even saying that, but
no,
it's a Sunday.
I'm very aware that everybody is here to see Kari, so it does feel a bit like Britney Spears going on after Sinatra. So I'm just watching to see how quickly the participants think.
I love that you've just aligned yourself with Britney Spears.
It's Britney, bitch.
So, over to you, sir. Over to you.
Yeah, I would actually, to be honest, rather keep listening to that previous discussion. So I'm going to keep this really quite brief and light. The watch that I'm going to be talking about is, I think, one that everybody is very, very familiar with. So the actual watch itself as an object, I don't think is the most, not relevant, but is not sort of the most important thing in the world. But what I'm really working with and what I'm really excited about a lot these days is the concept of legacy in an object, and the extra value and the extra romance and emotion that everybody puts into a simple object. And I think the easiest analogy of that is something like a wedding ring, or couple ounces of gold aren't really that exciting, aren't really even that rare. But as soon as you put in the context to it, I think is what I'm saying, you really, really, really get something very interesting. So this is the first watch. Don't touch your face, people. Pardon me. This is the first watch that I got in about 2009, I guess. Of course, it's the, I think, iconic Bell & Ross BR0192, the stainless steel model. When my grandfather passed away, all of us grandkids got a little small chunk of money out of the inheritance. And it actually sounds really kind of reckless almost to say, but I've always wanted a very cool mechanical watch. But as a broke-ass student, I just couldn't make it work. My grandfather was always very, very interested in the technical side of things, not from an engineering standpoint, of course. He was a police officer in Canada. Royal Canadian Mounted Police, no less. But he was always very interested in kind of the how and the why of things. And he could sit there and you could discuss a pencil sharpener, you know, for half an hour with this kind of person. So I sort of jumped at the chance to get myself a mechanical wristwatch. And I think something that I've really noticed now, and it's probably going to be quite an unpopular opinion, but I absolutely don't share the same romance of buying and selling and this sort of flipping culture of somebody would probably look at that last watch that Kari was showing and, oh, why would you pay that for that price? I could get 5 Rolex Submariners that I could flip for 17.3%. I just, you know, at that point, it's just like selling used cars. I have no interest in that. And when I got this watch, I was very aware of what went into it. I was very aware of how I got it. So even the day that I bought it, it had, I don't want to say a bit of a ghost to it, but it does have a bit of gravity to it. And that's something that I think is really, really an important part of our industry. And I think it's very difficult to not overdo that. And it's very difficult to have that be authentic as well. I think some brands overshoot the storytelling aspect. I think some brands tell other people's stories, which is, I just think, kind of corny and silly. But with this watch, it kind of became my way into the industry because I didn't go to Wo-Step. I don't come from a watchmaking background like Kari and Stepan and all these other people that we're discussing. I'm much more of a traditional industrial design background. And the way that I found my back door into the watch industry, this was the early days of social media. So about 2009-ish, pre-Instagram social media. If I can sound very old here for a minute. I bought my watch and I just started taking dumb pictures because I was so proud of myself that I had spent more money than I should have on a wristwatch. And I would just start taking pictures of the watch on the table at the pub or at the beach or, you know, with the coffee cup in the background. And I got hooked up with a couple of very good friends in England who ran an unofficial Bell & Ross forum, a web forum called Bravo. And this would, of course, be Peter Sperry and the legendary Simon Cudd. And through these two guys, basically, as the picture shows, we were all just complete nerds taking pictures of our own watches and trading them back and forth. And what Simon was exceptionally good at, he was kind of the first, I don't want to say this, the first influencer in this industry. And of course, now that Anish has done it so prevalently and there's every little pretender on the planet trying to emulate him, when Simon and Pierce first started doing this, it was just for the love of the watch and for the brotherhood behind it. And that's what I really, really, really connected to. So this picture here, Lake Okanagan, outside of Vancouver, you know, it was at this beautiful winery, this fantastic sunset. Everybody, my family, my wife were all chatting. And I'm crawling out to the end of the dock to take a picture of my stupid watch. Like that's not normal. But that's the emotive power and that's the connection. And that was the brotherhood that I really got pulled into. And that really is why I will never sell this watch. And I will give this watch to one of my kids someday. Absolutely. Other watches I can buy and sell, you know, I don't really, this one in particular is special because it's the first one. And yeah, all these silly pictures and stuff. What actually got me the most into the industry was I started making watch straps. Actually, the one that I'm that I'm wearing right now, those in the first picture, with another English countryman of yours, Carl Evans of Gas Bones, who made most of the NATO straps for Vermont watches. And we just started mucking about, making custom straps for our Bell & Ross watches. And through a very odd series of events involving Salon QP and way too many free glasses of wine, I ended up, I think it was Graham watches, Eric Loth from Graham Watches. Showed him some of these straps that we had on and just went absolutely nuts for it. And within about 3 days, we had this potential order for, 400 or 500 straps, and it was becoming a business very quickly. And it just broke the ice well enough that it started getting the attention of all these different brands. So we can hop along to the next picture here and see where we're. That, of course, is there's Simon. Actually managed to get myself invited to Basel World. I think this would be about 2012 or 13. So actually the first year that I went to Basel. And we were sitting in the presentation room with Carlos, and Carlos was showing some of the new novelties. And I had just made this really silly strap based on their what was it? Not the radar model, the Horizon indicator model. And in the middle of a presentation, Carlos was showing the watches to about 15 people. Simon, being Simon, sort of leans over to Carlos and says, "Oi, Carlos, hey, look at this. What do you think of this?" It completely railroads the presentation. Hands the strap I'd made to Carlos. And Carlos looks at it and goes, and he leaves, takes the strap and leaves. And now everybody turns and looks at me like, who's this idiot that just ruined the presentation? Carlos comes back about 5 minutes later, and he's put my strap on the original prototype of this watch of theirs. And I actually got to wear it around Basel for the rest of the day. So through that, I actually got to be quite good friends with both Carlos and Bruno and Bell & Ross as a brand. And they were really quite important for actually helping me get a start in the industry, because I didn't have the watch design education, or I didn't have the contacts, but the contacts came from friends, and it came from just simply being a bit of a watch geek. And I think it's quite a bit more common now, but I think, 8 years ago, it was a bit of a coup to just sort of sweet talk your way in the back door, drink all their wine, and leave with the right business cards. It's outstanding. Hop to the next picture here, please. This one I just wanted to include because it's such a bloody fantastic picture. So this is my grandfather, Chief Superintendent William Alfred Allen, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And this, as well as being, this is where my son got his name from, just the simple act of leaving a bit of money to your grandson became, I'm talking to you guys. I mean, it just absolutely bakes the noodle to think about it.
Awesome, mate. It is awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. And it's, I've totally wandered off my notes here, so, sort of screw that. But
that's all right. It's all good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really difficult to keep the romanticism going without it, especially when it becomes your job. Because when it's just a hobby, hey, who the hell cares? But as soon as you got to pay the rent with it and feed your kids with it, selling out starts to sound pretty good. So to actually keep that sense of wonder about it is really, really important. And I'm very, very thankful that I have. And actually, I think if you can hop to the next picture, I think that should be the last one there. This is actually the most important picture in my career. So in 2010, when I did my design master's thesis, through a really weird series of events, I got invited to spend about 3 months in South Australia. Long story short, it was helping design next generation submarines for the Australian Navy. As you do, right? And at the time, Bell & Ross had a photo contest going on that was simply called A Day in the Life. Show what is your average everyday sitting on the bus, whatever, with your Bell & Ross watch. And I actually won the competition with this picture because we were in Adelaide, South Australia, on a secure Navy facility, which was awesome. And every single day it was 38 degrees and tropically bloody gorgeous, South Australia. So we had just done a big presentation, and we were sitting there waiting for the bus to go home. And I just kind of looked at my buddy, because this beach called Semaphore was dead flat. You could walk out about 200 meters offshore, and the water was barely past your knees here. But it was so gorgeous, and it was so sunny, but we were so bloody busy that I think we actually went to the beach maybe 3 times in 2 months. So it was a total waste. So my day in the life was, obviously looking kind of bored and kind of annoyed and just waiting for the bus to go home, and completely oblivious to this spectacular natural environment around us. And we actually won the photo contest with this and got brought out to Paris and just had this hysterically fun, very champagne fueled evening with Bruno and Carlos and a whole bunch of the other Bell and Ross enthusiasts. And this picture absolutely was the catalyst that touched off one project, led to the next project, led to the next project, led to Schofield, led to Sarpaneva, led to MBNF, led to David Toon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe Kari someday. It was a lot of fun, and it happened so
organically.
So organically, yeah.
Yeah, because
absolutely fun. And actually, the other Bravo Bell and Ross Forum co-founder that I just really briefly touched on, Pierce Berry, I think you were going to be speaking about some pieces.
I'm going to speak about him in a minute, yeah.
So that's the little full circle.
Segue.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say.
So
I'm not going to overstay my welcome.
No, please do.
With my Badger mug that my mother-in-law made for me.
There seems to be a general kind of shock and awe reaction to the submarine design. Are you allowed to say anything more about submarine?
Yeah. I wish it was something a little sneakier. Extreme environment habitation design, which is the $25 way of saying I designed a bathroom. I designed a bathroom.
Oh! So you didn't actually build a habitat. It was
we stayed away from all kinds of the actual military side of things, but basically we were 2 designers in a company with about 140 naval architects and engineers. So it was like we were like missionaries, and they just beat the holy crap out of us. And actually, if I can, I'll tell you a quick 2-second analogy that has one dirty word in it, so I'll mute myself. At the end of this project, we got to present our thesis at a big NATO Navy conference in Glasgow in about 2010. And just by moving around all the floor plan and sort of making kind of smart decisions, we managed to save something like 5 square meters of floor space on a nuclear submarine, which is, like the real estate value of that is ridiculous. So we're presenting this to about 300 different Navy people from all around the world and all the uniforms and haircuts and stuff. And we say, well, we've managed to save 5 square meters of space. And this American retired admiral guy puts up his hand and he goes, so you've saved 5 square meters? We say, yes, sir. And he goes, carry 3 extra cruise missiles. And we're like, no. The toilet can be 5 centimeters bigger. The bed can be slightly bigger. It feels more like home. And on stage in front of all these people, the guy says back to me, pardon the language, he goes, son, if you wanted a hot shower, you should have joined the fucking Air Force. And all these military guys start howling with laughter. And we're just looking at each other like, I'm going home. What do you say to that? Like, oh, okay, that's exactly our point.
I have no words.
Yeah.
Very quickly, Adrian Hellwood.
Adrian, yes.
Is obviously you've done dials, you've done lumen inserts into dials, cases, etc. Have you got any plans to manufacture whole watch cases yourself, i.e., out of Fordite, Horizon, whatever you've got? Is it doable?
No. It could be. The problem is that it runs the risk of looking like either a movie prop or a Christmas ornament. I think the nicest piece of negative review I ever got about something I worked on. Somebody said about the MB&F HMX. They said, I'd love to wear it, but I'm not a 20-year-old poker player from Macau, so I'm not going to wear it. And that, I think, for my end of things, was quite a restrained piece. It's so easy to overdo it, and it's so easy to make it look like something you get in a gumball machine. So that's actually, it's possible, but I don't think I'm the guy for it.
Fair enough.
That was very politically put.
Good. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the next is Matt, but it's not a watch yet.
No, it's not a watch yet. So this is like completely different. Apologies for like getting you all on here and then asking for money. But a few weeks ago, I stumbled across an Instagram account for an artist called Anna Masters. Can we just show the pictures? Anna's a three-dimensional mixed media artist, and if you just skip on a little bit, she basically creates these small frames. This one's a 25 centimeter by 25 centimeter frame, suspends them with fishing wire, and then hangs off bits of watches and clocks. She's very much into what time means, the value of time, etc., and she very kindly produced this one-off unique piece called Minute 2020. We'd like to raffle it off and sell a number of tickets, 100 tickets at £10 each, hopefully to raise £1,000 for Mind, the mental health charity. I'll put a link in here, and we'll be posting about it all over the place. But I just wanted to say, I hope that the WatchNerd community, Team WatchNerd, will support us to try and raise some money through this difficult time for many, and hopefully, being with a chance of winning something that I think is quite lovely, quite beautiful, and says something about time and why we love it. So that's all it is. I'll post things later on, but thank you for your time.
These are ridiculously cool, I think. So
Yeah.
Matt and I both saw this on, I'm trying to remember whose feed it was.
F1 Colin.
Yes, Colin. So I interviewed him for the podcast a while ago, and we talked about Hoyers, I think. And Colin is an interesting man who collects many interesting things, including art. And he posted a picture of one of these. Matt and I were talking about it. Matt got talking to Anna, and Anna came back, I think, and said, I've kind of moved into mostly doing installation pieces. So we then both rushed to her website and looked at these things that fill like a room. And we're both, I think, trying to work out how we got a piece of art that big into our houses. And then realized that probably wasn't going to happen. And Matt carried on the conversation with her. And I think like anybody that's been involved with any of the charity stuff that I've done through Time for a Pint with Movember, and the kind of the reason that I got into that is the mental health side of things. And Matt and I have talked about this a lot, and there's a lot of us that are sort of isolated and not necessarily always having the best time of it. And a charity like Mind does great work to support people that are kind of struggling. So this is a great cause. So I think if we could maybe everybody here wants to go buy a ticket, maybe? I don't know, maybe. Just a suggestion, just putting it out there. But the link is here. Matt's going to put it in the chat as well. It'll be all over social media later. You will have a chance to do a good thing and give a bit of money to a really good charity and maybe win a beautiful piece of art. So, very cool. And now back to watches.
Back to watches. So, about 5 minutes ago, James did a rather elegant segue into this watch. This is the Pinion Atom, Pinion watch company based outside Henley in the UK, set up by Piers Berry back in 2013. Piers, worked with Simon on Bravo. He also did the Bremont forum back in the day as well. And both of them was, remarkably helpful to me in my fledgling career as an early watch nerd, as was Kari actually, and as is James, but that's for another time maybe. So this is the Pinion Atom. It was released in 2017. They previously built some much bigger watches, larger watches, and this was slightly smaller, I think about 41mm case. If the pictures aren't quite up to my usual standards, it's because these were taken by my younger brother, because I've lent this watch to him. unfortunately, and so couldn't take the photos myself. It also explains why, although the photos were taken yesterday, the date says 31. So, next picture. It's that classic field watch design. It's 40, I think 48, 49 lug to lug, so it's quite nice on the wrist. Just flip over to the next one. A bit like Stepan's watch, actually. There's the Pinion logo on the crown. His Pinion has a few more teeth than Stepan's, but I really like this. They were under £1,000 at the time. They're Myota 9105, 9015 movements. It's stainless steel B-blasted case. Rather nice case back engraving. They're called the Atom because they were slightly smaller than his original watches that he produced. So there's that nice Atom design on the back, individually numbered, etc., etc. This one must be the 8th. Yeah,
Eighth
just
Atom.
a link.
That sounds like a good movie.
The 8th Atom, yeah.
Atom,
the
I like that.
The 8th element, maybe. Although that was carbon, isn't it? No, that's C6. Oh, oxygen. Oxygen is the 8th element, isn't it? Have I just made that up?
Just gonna discreetly Google this.
Anyway, so yeah, it's just when we have a little pre-call before these get-togethers, and James mentioned he was talking about Bell and Ross and Simon, and this is a small link back to that watch crowd and a bunch of people who were incredibly lovely, remain lovely. Well,
yeah,
remain lovely. Anyway, I'm going to move on before anything bonkers happens. Any questions?
Pierce has had quite a bit of success with this brand. I think the last I was seeing, it's being quite a few sort of films and TV shows.
He's done very well with that. Yeah,
are rocking his pieces.
Yeah, he's done very well in placing the watches with various actors, and he's just had an auction, I think, of some of those worn pieces. Actually, the latest one from. My mind's gone.
Was it Taken? The UK version of the Taken TV series. That was a couple of years ago, perhaps.
Yeah, but also Lock, Stock and Lock, Stock. What's the latest movie? Anyway, the latest movie. What's his face?
The Gentleman.
Yeah, The Gentleman. It's in there. It's in one of McMafia. Someone points out Hugh Grant in The Gentleman, says Stuart Kelly. Thank you, Stuart. Oh, finally. Hugh Grant, a small actor, UK, British, maybe English. Kathleen will tell me. Anyway.
Does small plays and such.
Yeah, Shakespearean, I think, but swears a lot.
Once stood in front of a door somewhere in London.
That's true.
That guy.
Anyway, there we are. So we've had, so I'm just trying to work out, if you were Britney Spears, that makes me Gaga. Can I be Gaga?
No, you cannot be Lady Gaga. You would be
Rob Smith from The Cure.
You know what? No, you wish. Let's just see what the comments come up with this.
Next watch.
Okay. So we've had interesting handmade watches, very high-end, interesting handmade watches, watches with a really good story, another watch with a really good story. I am going to bring the tone down ever so slightly with another watch that I got from the bottom of eBay, which is where I buy most of my horology, because as has been said by many people, I am cheap. So this is a Seiko Sportsman Sea. So this came from a guy who on eBay imports cameras from Japan and sells them to unsuspecting British people that want to buy an old Japanese camera and look cool. I have no interest in that. I know I don't look cool, so a camera won't help me. But he occasionally has other stuff that's like appeared in packing crates. And this appeared a couple of years ago. So this is a 1964 Seiko Sportsman Seahorse. A seahorse is 2 words, which makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm sure it makes Matt feel slightly uncomfortable too. I feel there shouldn't be a gap there. I don't know why there's a gap there. I don't know.
No, then it's just a horse that fell in the ocean.
Maybe. It's a horse in a boat. I don't know. I have no answers because as anybody who's tried to research very early Seiko will tell you, there is no information on the internet in English, and I can barely read English, so Japanese is a no-go for me.
What was the year on this? Sorry?
This is 1964. So this is summer of 64. The last time that, well, the time there was an Olympics in Tokyo, because the one this year is now been postponed. But this is a manual wind watch. Seahorse, as far as I can dredge out of little bits of information, meant that this was waterproof to some degree. No one had been sued for saying waterproof on a watch yet, so it said waterproof. It has a screw case back. It's manual wind. It's about 35 millimeters in stainless steel. It's pretty sharp. It's got some nice angles on it. They have really cool case backs, these watches, with a very deeply embossed serial number, which when you run it through some kind of generator will tell you how old this is. So I think this is June or July 1964. You can just about make the model number out on there, which is J13082. And it has the features like it's waterproof, it's got dire shock, I think it says a stainless steel case, and the kind of cool seahorse logo. Which I really
with a crown.
like. With a crown.
Seahorse with a crown.
So it's a royal seahorse of some kind. I don't know. I like.
Kari, do you like this one? Kari?
Excuse me?
What do you think of this watch?
I think it's beautiful. I think it's very nice. And when you think about the age, I mean, it's in excellent condition. And when you look at it, it's not beaten up at all.
It is amazing, really, that.
And when you look at the dial is pretty. It's pretty dial. I mean.
Yeah, they did a good job on the dial of these. So.
Are those loom plots? The gaps in the minutes?
No, so there's a groove.
It's not beaten up. It's stunning.
Yeah. So the hour markers have a groove down the center of them and a bezel at either side. So when you wear this and it catches the light, it's lovely. This is like, I think people in the West get very excited now about the idea of buying very early Grand Seikos and King Seikos and the high end models. Mm-hmm. But Seiko were making some very beautiful, simple watches that were more accessible to people like to everyday people that just wanted to buy a watch. This I guess is the kind of the Japanese equivalent of the watches that people like Hoya and Omega and Movado and all of those guys were making as an everyday watch. It's a manual wind Suwa caliber 957, which is like the end of Seikosha movement. So if I go through a bit, so this is the back. The bevels on this are lovely. Like this, I don't know why this was in a batch of camera equipment. I've got no idea. Maybe someone dropped it. I don't know. I just got very lucky. But it's obviously been looked after by somebody or just not worn. It's very sharp. It's thick lugged. It sits kind of proud of the wrist. It has 18.5 millimeter lugs on a micrometer, which is a really interesting size to try and find a strap for. And it has the SW crown, which means Seiko waterproof. So earlier one at the time just had an S, but this has got this lovely W with the little sort of arms on it. It's a really nice detail. It winds very smoothly. It's never been serviced as far as I can tell, which I should remedy at some point. But you know, it's a
Does
nice.
It come on leather? Do you wear it on leather or?
Yeah, I have it on a Hirsch leather strap. There's kind of an indication that it's maybe was on a bracelet once upon a time. There's a very, very fine mark, but not the kind you'd expect for a watch to have been had for like 60 years with a strap on or bracelet on. It appeared to me as just the watch. There was nothing else with it, so it was just the watch.
And this basically came as like a free gimme within a box of camera stuff.
So as far as I can tell, the guy that has the eBay account this came from imports pallet loads of old Japanese cameras, and his entire eBay shop is Japanese cameras and lenses and stuff. And there was just this watch, and I messaged him and said, could I have some more pictures? And he said, I don't really know how to take pictures of watches. It's very reflective.
But he's got lots of cameras, so.
Yeah, he's got lots of cameras, but it turns out he couldn't take a good picture. So I took a punt on this, and it was, I don't know, maybe £60. I thought it looked good. I couldn't really tell, and I thought, if it's £60, how badly wrong can it go? I don't know.
I found I have a 1973 Seiko automatic that I got for $5 Canadian dollars at a garage sale.
Nice.
When I was in high school, it's
it's a brand that I think like people kind of undervalue time-only old Seiko watches. I don't know why, but I think these early ones in particular are quite pretty. The movement inside is nice. This is still labeled as Seikosha. So this is from the Suwa factory, which was the last factory Seiko owned that was left in one piece after the end of the Second War. So you then have the sort of semi-famous competition between the Suwa factory and the Dani factory, and Suwa was producing the early stuff that came to the West. So a lot of the early movements have got Seikosha on them. This has got 957 engraved, which is the movement number. This became a 6602 or a 66 series, which is just it's a manual wind with about 37 hours of power reserve. It's got 37 jewels. It's quite nicely finished for a mass-produced watch. And yeah, I just like it. It's just a watch I like, and I wear it quite a lot. Like I have quite big wrists, and this is quite a small watch, but I like it, and when I wear it, it makes me feel happy. So, and that's what this stuff is about, right? You should wear watches that make you feel happy. Otherwise, what's the point in having them? I'm with you, James. Like this idea of buying watches to flip, nah.
It just doesn't do it for me. What actually was the first vibe I got when you showed this, and you said the year, is if you look at like Japanese car design, before it became synonymous for the good or the bad with the very intelligent, affordable, mass-produced cars, when they were still kind of figuring out what their place in the world was going to be, had the most fantastic 60s, early 70s kind of Mad Men aesthetic, you know, like that Sean Connery Goldfinger suit, you know, like that just razor sharp lines on this. This is fantastic. I'll give you £60 for it.
I'm waiting to see what turns up, because I bought another one on eBay on Friday night quite late from someone with even worse photography skills, but for less money. So that's good. So I don't even know if it has a movement in or if it runs, because every time I asked a question, the response I got was buy it if you want it, which is it's the bottom of the customer service level, I think, really.
Buy it if you want it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very direct and at the same time incredibly unhelpful. So we will see what turns up. But it's supposedly another Seiko Seahorse of some kind. I would be very surprised if I get as lucky twice. But who knows? Like these are, until now. I mean, whenever I've put this on social media, people sort of go, "Hey, when did Seiko make those? They don't make watches like that. This is crazy sharp. Where did this come from?" It's like they did make watches like this. They didn't export many of them. I don't know if they exported any in the 60s, because Japan was kind of closed, right?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Who knows?
Which just makes it extra cool.
It's nice. And if before the cost crisis, you know, the cost watches, they started to come just after that. And then they were doing less mechanical watches afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. So
well, no, that's a good point. I mean, 64. It's only 5 years before they got onto the Astron, and you know that's a spectacular thing to do. To go from this to the Astron in 5 years is pretty outrageous.
I think that there's something that kind of gets forgotten a little bit is the romanticism in Japanese watchmaking. Like there is this definite trend in the West to just be like, oh well, it's Japan and they're very precise and they make hundreds of thousands. Yeah, the kind of the G-Shock thing, and those watches are great. But then if you look at things that are made by hand or sort of slightly higher end and anything mechanical, there's love that goes into these things, right? You don't make watches like this necessarily because you think everyone's going to love them. You look at some of the Grand Seiko stuff, and Creedor in particular, which is like I've yet to see a Creedor watch that ticks a box for me, but you have to be bowled over by that level of engineering and the passion that's gone into making those things.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was speaking to Carl Eady, you know him, a couple of years ago at Basel about the Grand Seiko watches. And I admittedly didn't know much about Grand Seiko as a brand at that point. I kind of lumped it in with, it's a lot of money for a Japanese watch. And he basically bought me a beer, sat me down for like an hour and a half, and just educated me on the amount of, even just the amount of finishing, the amount of experience that you need to have to do the finishing on the hour indicators, just to be the person that polishes them. It is, it's like the people that carved St. Peter's. You know, it cannot be cost effective to work that way, but who cares? Because it is absolutely gorgeous work. The amount of hand care that goes into it, it just is so disappointing that it's getting lumped in with much more technically produced items.
And now the new ones, they have the new model what they're launching with their own escape, and I think technical point of view, it's absolutely stunning what they're doing. So I think they're also very creative on the, and I think they will be much more creative on the technical side as well. And the aesthetically, pure.
And the Citizen 1000, whatever, what Citizen?
Was that the super fine, the 1mm watch?
No, I was thinking of the super accurate one.
Oh yeah, that's crazy as well.
Yeah, and then home to so many fantastic independent watchmakers as well. Anyway, wow, cool.
I'm going to stop sharing this now so you can see our faces slightly larger. Hello, everybody. Any more questions from everyone? Anyone from the panel, from the chat? Anything?
I have a fast question. I thought it was supposed to be called Time for a Pint, and I don't see any. Okay, cool. I can stop pretending this is coffee. South Australia's finest coffee.
And quick question, Tintin, Kari?
Okay.
Yeah, just look at that.
That's so good.
Yeah, Tintin, that's my office. So the previous owner, the guy who was living here, so he was a painter. I mean, painting buildings, but he did this painting.
And what is Tintin wearing? He's got a watch on, hasn't he?
Well, I don't know. I see only the strap. It's a leather strap.
I just thought it was like a digital, you know, like a Zoom background.
No.
Mad respect. That is so cool.
Wall, which is Tintin.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's funny.
That's absolutely outstanding.
Perfect.
I feel like we've talked a lot about watches. This has been a really, really, I mean, it's always a fun Sunday evening, but this has been an especially fun one. Seth says get painting for next week, Chris. Seth, it's not going to happen. I can't do that. I mean, there is a blank wall behind me, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do that.
Marcus points out that he was right. He told us this would be a great show, and apparently it has been. So thanks for that, Marcus.
That was very cool.
That's very kind of everybody. So I think thanks to everybody. Thanks to my wonderful co-host Matt. Thank you to Kari and James. Thanks to everybody at home for listening and asking questions and joining in. We will be back next week, and the four of us are going to have to carry on this conversation in person at some time over more drinks as soon as we're allowed. So, cool.
Right. Thanks,
everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.